遠くで聞こえている遥かなる調べ忘れじの物語
And welcome everybody to the Saint Seiya Cosmocast. I'm your host Ramses. I wanted to start off by saying thank you so much for downloading this episode. If you like this podcast, please give us a subscription on wherever you're listening to your podcast, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Player FM, Spotify, YouTube, and many, many more places where you can download. You enjoyed the conversation about this episode and many other episodes by finding us on Twitter, by finding the username ST Cosmocast and joining the conversation by using the hashtag Keep Burning That Cosmos, all one word, or find the pinned topic on the Saint Seiya fan Reddit over at r Saint Seiya. So let's start with a little bit of news. Toei has put up in Japan. Let me emphasize this right now by saying only in Japan that they have put up the first major arc of the series, the 12 Houses Saga, free on YouTube during the lockdown of the COVID-19 virus. Masami Kuroda has said in a press release, "I want kids to enjoy their time. I want to help as much as possible that people stay in their homes." And the saga is, of course, one of the most iconic sagas in the entire arc of Saint Seiya. We'll be getting to that arc eventually. I won't say when. Let's see how popular this podcast gets, which I hope it is, But regardless, I am hopeful that we get to that point. But again, going back to the main topic of news, one of the things that struck me as interesting is that it's not only a good part where people are watching for like nostalgia reasons, but it's also a good part where if you're watching the CGI series, it ends as this part begins. So one way or another, you can get caught up very easily where they are by watching either the CGI series or slugging through 40 or so episodes of the original series to get to this point. Which I don't know if they have it on Netflix as well, but I'm pretty sure they have it on somewhere available, more readily available in Japan than say here in the United States. But I don't know how the licensing works down there with video on demand and stuff like that. Regardless, it is kind of an interesting move that they did this. It's a good move because it's it's a nostalgic. It's a nostalgic part of the series, one of the most iconic parts of the original series. And it has a lot of iconic parts, and I think it's a really good starting point for if you really want to go back to watching the series and you just want to go into it again. That's a great place to go back to. And like I said, for those that are watching the CGI series, I feel that this is more. This is a very good place to continue on where the series ended up. So, if you're curious, well, either way, if you're a longtime fan, there's a place. This is a really good place to come back to. Or if you've just been following the CGI series or haven't seen the series at all, you can get caught up with the CGI series and then immediately go into this arc. So, I think it works both ways, and I do believe that this is a really smart move on Toei to do that. Like I said, you're going to be hearing a lot of news like that. A lot more places are going to be putting up stuff for free like that for a foreseeable future. Because, things are on lockdown. We don't know when things are going to be, okay to come out and stuff like that. So, I think it's a good idea. Like I said, there is no other news right now at the moment concerning anything in the world of Saint Seiya. Other than that, but, this is big news for if you're in Japan, and right now if you're watching on Netflix currently, like I said before, the entire series is currently on Netflix. The original series, that is, not complete just yet. We still don't have Hades up yet. So one of the things I wanted to address, one of the things that was asked by the viewers when I posted a question about what they wanted to see in further episodes of the series was, the differences between the anime and the manga, and where do I stand on it, and where are some of my opinions on what they've done. And I feel like where we are in the story, especially where we're gonna go to next in these next block of episodes, I feel like it's a good time to have a little bit of a discussion about like what's going on with these with this filler arc and all this stuff going on. So yeah, I mean, let's talk about filler. You know, filler is not something that a lot of people enjoy. A lot of times, like filler just gets, it's just that it's just something to eat up time, and usually in anime and in other mediums, it's just viewed as it's just not well done. It's either really well done or really not well done, and usually it polarizes a lot of people. I do know for a fact stuff like Fullmetal Alchemist comes to mind, where it just deviated so much after quite a while that series that they had to do another redo of the series. There's really, and this reminds me of a little conversation in Gintama about the nature of like how, just like the nature of fillers, like how there's the filler where it tries to do a little bit of filler to get caught up with the anime, and then it does something within its universe, and then it either splits off into its own thing and doesn't come back to the manga, or it just takes such a long roundabout way of getting to the place where the manga is. It's a completely different series altogether by the end of it. And I think Saint Seiya is a little bit of column B, a little bit of column C, because when we get to column A, it only pertains to like stuff like Dragon Ball, where it has pockets of it, but it's never like to the detriment of like the actual series. It's usually something like a short little arc, like the Garlic Junior stuff. It's like usually we're there for like 8 or 9 episodes, and then we're back on track with the series. We're seeing a little bit of the mix of both. I think a little bit of more C than B, because this particular part of the series is just very jarring, very I wouldn't say very poor, but your mileage may vary. Just like I said, like these few episodes that we're doing, it's really jarring about how obviously clear, like how not part of the series they are, with like the design of the characters not even like resembling something that looks like a Saint Seiya character, and it's just like they're so like, what's a good way to describe it? They feel so like an afterthought that they just become like generic mooks after a while. Like there is like no real rhyme or reason to a lot of it, and it's kind of sad. Like looks like they wanted to put some effort into it, but they just couldn't at the end. Like you can tell, like stuff like when we get to Socrates. Socrates feels like something they were trying to do something big with, and unfortunately, it just didn't pan out as well as it did. It just kind of like fizzled out, and it's kind of sad that it's like as this series goes on, and I'm not gonna really go into much of like the stuff we're gonna see later. One of the things I will say is that we will get to see some new saints called the Steel Saints, and there's a cynical part of me, and I think there's a little bit of a cynicism as well with these characters, that these kids are like, they're already the main characters are kids. They're like 13, 14-year-old kids, and yet here's these much younger kids that are like 7 or 8, and like they're saints as well, and it feels very jarring. Like it feels like very tacked on, and it's clearly obvious, from a cynical standpoint, that they were just produced by like a toy company to just sell toys, and it's like, it's who am I to judge to a guy who collects Transformers and G.I. Joes and stuff and Masters of the Universe toys? Why am I the guy that's saying that it should be like that it shouldn't be that way? But I watch stuff that's pretending that way, but there is kind of like a flow to what they were trying to do with the earlier designs, and here it just doesn't, like, stop feeling it. And like I said, like this entire arc, like intermixed between the Silver Saint stuff as well. So this first beginning arc, these first 40 plus episodes of the series is just, it's hit or miss with all this filler stuff. And like I said, like this, like the crowd, like the creme de la creme of this is just the Steel Saints. But it can be done well. Saint Seiya has proven that you can do filler well. when we get to something even more later, the stuff after the 12 Houses saga, the Asgard saga, it's a short little arc that they take, and it's really good. I think it's like one of the best beginning parts of any Saint Seiya fan should be watching. If you're curious at any point to get into it, I think that's a really good place to start. That's where I started, as a matter of fact. I started there and I went backwards with the series, and what I liked about it a lot is, well, not only was the first kind of thing I saw of Saint Seiya, but it felt very organic. Like they did stuff to expand the universe, and ultimately ultimately all this stuff plays out paid off really well into the next series where everything we find out is like Poseidon and stuff like that as well. And I felt like that was a really good move on their part to organically attach these characters in instead of haphazardly putting these characters together for the sake of just trying to save for time. I think the series would have been more beneficial if they had a little more time to plan out how the characters were going to be. Because like when we get to this part of the series, you can tell like where the series kind of evolved into, and it from there feels like a little bit more like it had its own voice to tell its story more complete in a better way, and that Asgard arc really does benefit a lot from them having a little more time to plan out stuff and to do stuff better. And we've seen like and what's interesting about this is that we see this payoff. I do know for a fact, like, there's two very good examples of how this pays off. The Asgard stuff pays off really well because, well, we got a spin-off because we see a spin-off series. Two of them, and two spin-off series pay off to the two spin-off things that we see from the filler arc stuff. The Asgard stuff pays off in the sense that we get to see the stuff we get to go back to Asgard in Soul of Gold, and it's really good on how they handled it, all of the Asgard stuff as well. And one of the better aspects of Saint Seiya Omega was that they introduced the Steel Saints as adults, senior members of the Saint, and they get to implement a little bit better the Steel Saint technology with the Saint Seiya stuff going on. And it ultimately just makes for a better experience overall. So that's a fun little ride right there when you get to Saint Seiya Omega and you get to see the Steel Saints as adults and see like how they evolved everything. And it's really, really fascinating. So like I said, it's filler. Filler is kind of a difficult thing when it comes to doing it. The filler we're gonna get into is just gonna be just filler for the sake of just filling in time. No real second thought put into it. But when we get to when we get to stuff much later with Asgard, it's gonna be a little more. There's gonna be a lot more meat to the bone of it. Another thing that I like to discuss is because I think this goes hand in hand with a lot of the filler stuff is that the movie stuff as well. The movie, I think the third movie, they get to go to Asgard for the first time. The second movie, they get to go to Asgard, and I think that takes place during or before or after the 12 Houses saga. Someone correct me on this. But regardless, it gives us a glimpse of how Asgard is, and then we get to properly go into Asgard in the series proper. And like I said, like this pays off as well later on with Soul of Gold. And then we get to see in the first movie and in the third movie, we get to see the goddess Ares and goddess Apollo. And one of the things that I find interesting is that those two characters were going to be used by Kurumada in the Tenkaihen saga. They were going to be part of the Heaven saga as like the main antagonist. As I believe the story was going to go that Ares and Apollo had taken over the heaven. They're taking over all the Olympus, and they were gonna fight, and the Saints were gonna fight their way into Mount Olympus. And I think from there we're gonna meet the Gold Saints again, and then after that, and they're gonna be the Gold Saints in there, and they're gonna be other deities and other Greek gods, and then afterward I think like something with the Titans as well, and that was gonna reset the entire series. It just put the thing in an eternal loop to end this series. But this is like from hearsay. I think like I remember seeing this in an interview with Toru Furuya when he was discussing when he was discussing the fifth movie, the Tenkai Hen movie, and they use those characters as well in that movie as well. And like I said, like it tells you how how stuff that we see early on with like the filler stuff, like movies and like other stuff, become were or have been ingrained into the actual series itself. And I do believe that when you do filler in this way, the series becomes a little bit more organic and a little bit more. You have a little bit more to work with, and it expands the universe in a way that it should. Instead of like pulling you away and just making you feel like it's too jarring, you can have more organically placed stuff, and as long as you're organic with it, I think you think you can do really really good stuff with it. And like I said, it's easy to be very, very cynical with a lot of what's going on with like filler and stuff like that. With stuff like Game of Thrones that did filler in the most wrong way possible. The more famous example of how filler without using without it being linked to animes, Game of Thrones, and how that was handled with their filler stuff when they got to the point where it got cut up to the books. It looked promising, and then it just didn't work afterwards for whatever reason. And that's how I'm sort of feeling with this part. I'm not completely like, yeah, this season ever, but I'm also in the sense of like you could have done a lot better. It's good that now in hindsight we get to see the payoff of what the filler can do, and how later people in production use that filler stuff to their advantage. But like I said, there's still this it's still easy to be very very cynical, especially if you've been watching it growing up or you've been watching as it was airing. It's easy to be very turned off by what's going on and be just not interested in what they're trying to do. For the most part, I do want to keep it positive, but it's going to be kind of difficult for these next couple of episodes to be kind of positive. So, at any point, if I'm being kind of cynical about things or anything like that, it's just the nature of, like, I want it to be more organic, more ingrained into it, more naturally into the series. I don't mind any kind of stuff as long as it's done organically. Because I think if you do stuff organically, you can get away with a lot of stuff that the fans will latch onto and use it as the way to just perch up the series. If you do it just for like the cynicistic way of just getting $1 off of people just to buy toys, it becomes brutally hard to watch or to pay attention or anything like that. So, with that in mind, if you're wondering my opinion on what I think stuff in the anime only is, my thought is like, if done well, it's great. Like I think that's a very 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 good thing if they can pull it off. But right now we're not at a point where it can be pulled off, unfortunately, and it's going to be quite a while before we can get to a point where it does, unfortunately. So, yeah. So I'm sorry to like disappoint people, but like this is what we're going to be dealing with for the next couple of episodes here and there. So let's hope that things do get better. And when I get to the actual episode discussion here in a bit, you're gonna notice that despite me being kind of cynical about it, I'm still okay with it. I'll get to it there, but it's like I think watching it in a marathon setting, it's not bad, and I'll get to them more later. As a matter of fact, let's just get to it right now. Let's get to the episode and discussion with what's going on. Episode 13 and 18 of Saint Seiya. I think they're really good episodes. Well, I think that starts off strong. I mean, in fact, these first 3 episodes, 4 episodes are actually really, no, actually 3 episodes, because it's like 3 episodes where for doing the ending stuff for the Black Saints, and then 2 episodes where with Iki we see the fight, and then we have him explaining a little bit of his backstory following the episode. You meet at Socrates, they fight Socrates, and then they meet with the Caribbean Saints, those Saints, and then that's where we are. So, the Black Saints, I think I felt like they feel a little bit more organic. That the way that they made their turn with it, because like in the original manga, I think like, they were just there. They weren't really they just had to fight him and that's it. There wasn't really much of a evolution arc. Here we get to see him a little bit more evolve. Them seeing like, oh man, the power of friendship is kind of a powerful thing, and yeah, it is kind of like cliche. The power of friendship will conquer everything, but at the same time too, it doesn't feel clunky as any other series that does it. So, on one hand, I do give them props for them to do something like that, but on the other, it's like, yeah, it's still that tired old cliche. Yeah, and then we get to see the stuff with like Socrates and the other saints, quote unquote, because they haven't shown no designation of what they are, either gold, like silver, or whatever, bronze, or whatever. And like I said, when I was much younger, going back to like what happened in the last episode, I thought these episodes were like 50 episodes longer than they really should. But watching them in blocks like this, I think it's a little bit more digestible. I think now watching it as an adult, maybe just doing something else, like playing video games or something that's on the side, or just like fooling around your phone on Twitter or whatever. I think you have a little, like it becomes a little bit more bearable, because I think there's like just long stretches of absolute nothing and then something, and just alternate between some stuff like that, and we're going to be in that pattern for a little bit. So, like I said, like we're also introduced to like a lot of family members in this. Socrates is the brother of Cassius, and he wants revenge for Seiya for denying him the right of becoming a saint. And he's quickly disposed of. I thought like they were not gonna. I thought the episode was much longer, and I thought this was actually later in the series. Well, I thought this was like just before them fighting the Gold Saints. I thought this was like a reverse. Like it's like they fought it in between. But no, before the Silver Saints, it's like I thought like they fought him afterwards, but no, he's way before. I didn't expect that. We're also introduced to Kyoga's master, because I believe that at the time we didn't even know who his master was going to be. Later on, we have the hindsight of knowing that it was going to be that later on it was Camus, and here we're introduced to the Crystal Saint. And then the Crystal Saint, I forgot his name off the top of my head. And it's another filler thing as well that we get to see. And I forgot that he was his master, same with Shun's master. Because I believe in the manga he's someone else, and we've never seen these characters. Or we were briefly given these characters for so little time that we just had no time to really connect with them. So we just that's why they had to compromise and give stuff for this time being. And give or take, when we get to stuff later, we're gonna see a lot of what's going on with a lot of those filler characters and stuff like that, like especially the Crystal Saints. Like I said, like the episode just has a lot more of a inorganic feel. It just feels like they're just fighting these mooks. It really does feel like a Power Rangers show in a way, where they're just fighting a different bad guy every episode at this point. After they fight Socrates, they fight Geist, who's supposed to be Shina's sister, and I'm like, oh, so we went from one sibling to another sibling, okay. And it's explained that she was, that her and her group were denied access to the sanctuary, and like the Pope, we find out later it's someone else. And that Pope, the previous Pope, the good Pope, was, okay, you guys get the hell out. You guys are doing some bad stuff. Get out. Meanwhile, this book's like, if you can kill these guys and get me that armor back, that'd be nice. And I let you guys back in, so they do that so they can get their rightful place back in the sanctuary. But the Bronze Saints the one they try to fight them. They're described as having cloths that are very jelly-like. And I'm like, ew to the max. And yeah, they do really get disposed of really quick, unfortunately, and it's really bad. Not too bad. It's me watching the marathon setting where you're just put your brain on neutral for the most part. It's not that bad, and like I said, it's like there's a part of my brain that just wants to keep watching this. That lizard part of that brain that's like fighting. As long as there's as long as there are people punching each other, throwing stuff at each other, I'm still watching it. I guess when you're watching it in like an episode a day, it becomes very difficult. When you're watching a group of episodes like every couple of weeks or so, this becomes less of a chore. So, you know, props to, like, if there's one thing I really give props to for this kind of format of binging, it's the benefit is like you can smoke a lot of like bad episodes really quick. And you can get through a lot of this filler much quicker than you anticipate, and just get to like the main meat and potatoes of what's going on. Like I said, if you just want flashy stuff with like people like fighting each other and stuff like that, there's more of it, but it just becomes very silly, very cynical, and so it's like there's a cynical part of me that says this is pretty bad, but there's also this part of me still that believes that it's still pretty good. You just like give it a little bit of time, and if you can put your brain completely off, yeah, it'd be a little bit worth your time. So with that said, guys, like I know this is kind of I know this was not like the best group of episodes, Hey, as long as there's still people punching each other. Let's address Twitter really quick. Gao Salad on Twitter said, in my rewatch I found myself very confused about what the level these saints were. Black saints were as well as Socrates and the ghosts seem to be in a specific area between bronze and silver saints. It's like the world was no order. And the black saints were explained that's like they're the same black. They're just the same bronze cloths. They're just like the ones that were denied the black the ones that are denied the right to be the saints that's what they're manifest into. So they're all bronze saints. So they're all bronze level saints. As far as the Caribbean ghost and Socrates, I don't know. And that gives kind of like an idea of like how haphazard the series was kind of planned out. Like, I really do honestly believe that they didn't really put any second thought as to like what these characters are, how they're gonna be played out later. So unlike when we get to stuff like Asgard, where it feels more organic and a little more natural for them to be in a setting, here it's just like, okay, let's throw a design up and see what happens. So like I said, there's a lot of action, not really much plot. We're really at the point where it's like it becomes a monster of villain of the day type of thing. So you manage me very with these group of episodes. So with that said, guys, that's another episode in the books. I really am thankful for you to download this episode. Like I said before, if you like this episode or you like this podcast, give us a subscribe to us on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. Whether it's Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you can find the RSS feed, just give us a follow and keep following us. Tell your friends about it. Use the hashtag #KeepBrainAtCosmos, and we'll be back in 2 weeks. I'll keep in contact on Twitter. My username is Seiya Cosmocast, and with that said, guys, thank you for listening, and remember to keep burning that cosmos.
La canción de los héroes, caballeros del zodiaco, contra las fuerzas demoníacas, guardan siempre